So we're gonna get a little philosophical today again. Okay.
Starting with the hard questions.
we're gonna challenge people's minds. Mm-hmm. We're gonna be controversial. We're gonna start up a little flame war here. We're probably gonna get attacked. Actually, this is spicy stuff. We're gonna start firing here.
Okay. Well, if we can top last week, that would be something.
So I'm gonna preface this with a little bit like context. When and is just like, as an analogy almost. When the internet came out many years ago, people kind of thought that it was going to be this like really big liberating force, right? People thought, oh, there's freedom of information, like you can share anything.
It was probably like that in the late 80s.
And it kind of started out that way, like it was kind of used that way, and then obviously as time's gone on, it's kind of just like been monopolized and kind of cut up, and it's kind of become what it is now, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
enables us to talk to you for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know how YouTube still lets this happen.
Yeah. We probably should be allowed to just spew what we do. But,
for now.
Yeah.
And I was starting to think, I was chatting with another game store owner, a friend of ours, Mitch, who was, I talk to a couple times a week, and we kind of shoot business back and forth. Got lots of great relationships like that. Anyways, he was talking about 3D printing, and his take, which I think was fascinating, and I wanted to talk about with you today. And you today.
I mean, you don't have a choice. You have to talk to
I do have to talk to you about it. Yeah. What if the 3D printer, the very thing that people out there think is like liberating their hobby, and is giving it to the man, what if that very thing is actually cementing Games Workshop's monopoly?
Oof.
Even harder?
You're saying Timmy, who may or may not have a wife, who's sitting at home.
You have to bring Timmy back into it.
And
he
just unwrapped
mature Timmy.
He's just opened up his Mars whatever printer.
That's right.
Because he's ready to print.
Mars 14.
To print an old world army.
He's got his gas mask on. He's hooked up.
No, he's not wearing a mask.
No.
He's definitely.
He's huffing fumes.
He's breathing it in.
Huffing fumes.
That gets him off because he knows every time. He knows every time he's printing something. GW is just taking an L. He's just giving it to them
directly out of their bank account into his.
Yes,
that's exactly how it works. It's a wire transfer. Actually,
it's a wire transfer. When he prints those intercessors, GW's like,
man,
it goes. It's
the stock is plummeting. Just
plummeting. Yes. Yeah. So you're saying.
So let me expand the theory.
That very thing is only helping.
I think there is something. So, and people are already like turning this off. There's already like an essay being written. Like
they're starting to GoFundMe for Timmy.
They're doing the sideways typewriter style. Yeah. But hear me out all the way. I think where people don't think about it is how it's impacting everyone else that's not Games Workshop, right? So
consequence,
which is like when you actually talk about what companies are doing and how they're acting. The 3D printer hasn't changed how Games Workshop acts at all, but it has changed how for the most part, a lot of small companies are acting, right?
That's true.
So let's take a look at that. Let's expand that out and say, well, are they behaving differently? What's the long-term impact of that going to be? And do we think that could affect the small guy more than it could affect the big kahuna? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, for example, a small company like, I don't know, a startup like Trench Crusade or something like that. Let's see. We have to
ding.
We got the click in. Algorithm go. The fact that they made a decision, maybe a decision that like maybe 5 years ago, doesn't go that way, right? Mm-hmm. Is that we're gonna sell the STLs. We're gonna sell this game as a 3D printing game, right? It kind of, and we've talked about this in previous videos. People may not agree with us. It kind of like, to some degree, makes it so that like it's going to be very hard for it ever to see the shelf of the retail space, right? Mm-hmm. At least in its current form, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just a small example there of how like, I'm not saying Trench Crusade ever, sorry guys to break the bubble, was ever going to be a competitor to Games Workshop, but we're just talking about little games that could end up on a shelf space that occupy any kind of competitor space in a local gaming store on the wall, that's just something there that's automatically kind of like taken a detour and is probably not going in that direction, right? And the more these like little companies have to respect the 3D printer thing, and then they have to like almost cater to those people a little bit. I think there's an argument to be made that like the local gaming store, like your retail spaces, just get more and more dominated by the big guys.
I mean, I think our store is another case study. Yeah. No, I agree with everything there. No, for sure. So the idea here is that if the only way to get a game to market, or more and more likely, is this way, through the STL route, then stores are going to have less and less of the injection molded whatever mass. And some people may say that's great, because it lets them collect more, just dive into more games, and they just need to obtain a rule set. And that is an interesting consequence of that. And I could see that more, that we're just going to see less of these games get into a store. And I think you're already kind of seeing it. Like, eventually a company's going to be like, it costs so much. We have a little game with a small number of SKUs and limited model range, and we're like killing ourselves to get these like made en masse. Meanwhile, they're watching the Trench Crusade phenomenon happening, and I can only imagine. Just wait till like CMON or someone's like, "Oh, we should do this or whatever." It's just money in our account. We just have to make the files, and that's it. We don't have to ship anything. It's kind of a dream if you're a small guy that wants to just get a little game out and have people enjoy it. It's funny, you probably still make the same money.
That's the thing.
You just spend a lot less.
That's the thing. Yeah. You might make more money.
Yeah, and whether the game is successful from a retail level kind of doesn't matter, actually. So if you like the FLGS model, where it's like you come in and there's the space and the card tables or paint tables or game tables and your hobbies, everything's here, and it's your Cheers environment, you're just likely not going to see. Again, through the consequence of the 3D printer revolution, is the store's gonna be full of Warhammer and Magic, and that's it probably.
It's kind of interesting to turn it around that way, right? Because it's not framed that way online.
No,
online it's framed as this like we're gonna take the shackles off. We're not gonna be bound by Games Workshop. We can also stick it to them by printing their own stuff.
People seem to forget that Games Workshop's massive success in its industry is that its exposure is so incredible. How many and I bet you most of the viewers, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm completely at lunch, but this is my guess, entered the hobby being exposed to Warhammer first of some way. Yes, I'm aware there was model cars and trains and all that, but like a lot of us, especially if you're like under 30, I can imagine, was through some sort of Games Workshop product, digital or otherwise, and so the exposure is so big. Just like, you know how it is. I'm sure there's I know it's hard to believe on online, but there's people like, even though there's competitors of Lego, I always use Lego reference. People want the legit one. They want because it's just everything about it is like cleaner,
I know
nicer.
it's redundant, but like we always say the Magic card thing or the Pokemon card thing. Like you can print your own cards.
You can print your own cards.
You can get really good quality paper printers, really nice quality paper.
Yes.
But you can't.
You know what Pokemon content is the biggest right now is people opening packs. And being like, with the little numbers on the bottom, $2, $3, well, $150, and you get a little dopamine hit from that.
Surging sparks,
which you cannot get. Please stop calling the store. There's none. There's been none for a month. No, but for real, I think that's a fascinating result, and I think there's definitely some traction to that. That printer isn't going to kill you.
I mean, this is where like we try to give perspective, right? Coming from the retail angle, the way people start the hobby isn't the way I think like some people that have been doing it for a while or the online people like sometimes people forget how they got into it a little bit, or they got into, maybe they are like more of a fringe case, and then for the most part they don't understand how most people engage, right? Space Marine 2 was like a great example. You know, we saw floods of people. People generally aren't, when they start something brand new, they generally aren't going in deep online and like looking at, you know, like imagine the track you'd have to go down if you were to like, I like Warhammer 40,000 because I played a Space Marine game. This is really cool. You click on a thing to go to a Games Workshop website or whatever to check out like what the hobby looks like. Okay, you click on that, you look at that, you're like, oh, this looks awesome. What like decision tree are you going down where you're like, I wonder how I could like get counterfeit models of this, or like I could do this myself. Like it's not like,
probably when you look at the price, I guess is the
maybe
first,
and
is
that's
the first
that's
thing,
fine. You're like, but like my point is that like I think most people aren't wired that way to like immediately start thinking about like how can I subvert this.
Probably not. Usually,
Right?
usually that comes a little bit later.
Yeah,
because you've consumed a bit now, or there's a friend in the group.
But also, like the price, and this is me trying to sound like, you know, I was 11 and I remember like having to save up for a blister because it was a really expensive hobby. We've talked about this countless times in videos. When you enter a brand new hobby too, you don't have price expectations.
Yeah, usually no.
Usually you don't.
Like, oh,
like,
it's what? Oh, okay.
You're like, oh, this. You might come into it. You're like, oh, this is more expensive than I thought it was going to be, or this is less expensive than probably not with Warhammer, but
no. Yeah. Usually you walk into one of these hobby, whether it's the guitars or music, and you're kind of like, if you don't know anything, you're just gonna roll in and ask.
You're kind of like, okay,
and then they're like, it's this, and then you're like, okay.
And then usually like
think about whether you're
music's a good example. Like you're like, there's inexpensive guitars that you can start with, or there's kind of middle of the road, or you can go super crazy. And Warhammer's not that different from that, right? Like they have
whether it's a starter material.
Yeah, the starter material, but they also have games that are like less like Kill Team that are like a more sort of like okay, you want to just dip your feet in and have like a really good experience still.
I mean, there's no surprise that their $80 starters and $130 starters are constantly sold out because they're designed that way to be like, look, even if you don't go farther, just this is I would say the average jump in is probably $200, and then it's like you could just stay there and not do anything ever again. Like, and they count on that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
So I don't know. It's I think it's just worth. I know that we often get really entrenched in our kind of positions about things. Like if I bought a 3D printer, I don't want to feel that like. I want to feel excited about it. I want to feel like it is a cool thing, and I feel like and people will say, oh, it's not that new. It's like, yeah, it's still pretty new, like in terms of like miniatures and stuff like that, and how we use it. You're still kind of, if you own a 3D printer and you're 3D printing miniatures, you're still on the leading edge of that thing.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, like
it's still going through quite a rapid iteration. Like
yeah.
It's like every day someone's like, no, there's a printer that does this, and now I hear about the filament printers are now getting the resolutions got like super good, and it just continues and continues, and
that's definitely more of a game changer than the resin ones. Like I feel like the resin ones have all those other hang-ups, right, that you can't get over.
Yeah, the resin thing requires a lot more learning curve. No, I mean, we'll see. I mean, like I said, until the thing is like printing me a burger or is like an Apple device. I'm personally not really interested from that end because of the extra work involved. Yeah. But even if it does get to that point, I don't know. I don't know if it'll just like start, I guess when it becomes a Star Trek replicator and takes, minutes or seconds to spit something out. But at that point, it'll be in every household as a revolutionary item or whatever.
Yeah,
true. Which will also probably need insane energy requirements, but that's a whole nother discussion. No, I mean, we're seeing it in the store. Maybe it's a symptom of it. It's like, I can't, other than Atomic Mass, who has lots of money behind it, being an Asmodee, whatever, subsidiary, I don't know how anyone else just like, it's not the old days of we're just going to, do spin cast up some metal sculpts and offer them with a rule set, and game stores are full of little indie games and small game. No,
because like a pewter mini has to basically cost like $25 now. by the time it hits the shelf, right? Like just from all the labor, the material, the times it's shipped, the upmark from the distributor to the like it just like it's not $8 anymore like it was like 15 years ago. It's so
I haven't anyway. Long story short, Warhammer sales continue to go up. Even here at the store, and we're approaching or concluding our 10th year, and Warhammer continues to be the biggest anchor. It's still the most bulk of our sales. Sales across other games and products. The more we carry, the more that continues to go. Like so, I don't. And conversely, more people come in telling me about the 3D printers they own, and it hasn't changed the arithmetic at all. There has been no,
And like if you want to look at a graph, right? Like we don't like this. We like to say that causation isn't correlation isn't causation, right?
Right.
So, but if you were to just look at the correlation between like small games kind of dropping off of shelves in hobby shops and the 3D printing kind of revolution that's been coming out, the line goes kind of the same in direction.
Without us doing any scientific thing,
Without us, yes, I'm saying I'm not.
Say is like that's what it appears to be happening, and
these are just maybe some ideas why that might be.
Maybe why, I don't know why, but that's the thing, right? Is It just seems to be. I think it would be a different discussion if we were like. Obviously, we give our take on what's going on here, but like we can look at our competitors, and it's very similar. Yeah. Like within, like I said, all the LGSs. I know we're a slice of a pie, but I think if you look at, like I said, the geographic area around us and how many stores there are and how people consume these products, it's a decent. You can make a decent inference.
And I know, like, I have, like I said, I have other shop owner friends, and when we have conversations about, like, these other small games, it's very much they're selling them because they want to, not because they need to, or like, they're making an ideological choice. They're like, I want to support these small games. I want to have some small games in my store. Despite the fact that they, that they're not selling like they used to and stuff like that. So you're kind of making those choices. Like we make those choices too. Like we would cut even more games if it was just a matter of raw dollars versus sales. Like, but we like the stuff. That's kind of why we do it. Right. So you're always going to kind of like root for the little guy to a degree. Despite the massive shills that we are and continue to be.
Like I said, I wish we had more. I mean, I guess I could dig through the Facebook feed from years and years ago. We had tons of smaller games. That was like a big part of the offering here in that time. That 2015 to 2020 era, and they all without fail after a couple of years reached a point where the sales went to zero, basically. Went from like normal, from usually it was like a graph with a big spike because it's new and exciting, and then a period of like just a little flat, which is fine because you're like, it's here, you're restocking it, and then a complete drop to zero, and you're like, how? And then we're like, well, if it's zero, then zero is zero is unintendable. Like I can't even make. There's no way I can make this work. No. And a bunch of those, something they had in common is they were the kind of the pre-3D printer thing where they were like small Kickstarter games or small companies coming up with new games that maybe were Kickstarted, blah, blah, blah. And they had physical, metal or resin minis. And, what kind of happened is like that first year was great or 18 months. And then there was like nothing to back it up after that. They wouldn't have... Think of like a Drop Zone Commander or something instead of like expanding the first game fully or continuing to push that, they were like, we're going to make another game because that's how we made our money. And then that was like a colossal, flop or whatever they had to liquidate. But like that wasn't unique to them. That was like continuing. So, but because they were like, they went to retail and they had like retailer things and blah, 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 we would carry them. And now with the Trench Crusade type of business model, I don't know if that's the future going forward. Then you're going to see less and less of these things in the stores even now.
Well, and just to like maybe round out this video with, sort of like a question I'll ask our audience is, how could you get the next War Machine or, even Infinity, like let's say, because like it's a very respectable company that's managed to make it onto the shelf in stores across the world. But War Machine like really broke through and there's probably almost no, friendly local stores that didn't have some War Machine on their wall for a while. How are we going to get the next version of that if this Trench Crusade business model is kind of like the way we go forward, right? If we start at the point where these little companies are like, well, we kind of have to use this 3D printer thing if we're going to even like make it in the beginning. How can a company ever spike to be big if that's the starting point, right? So it's kind of scary that way, where like you're not even giving, there's not even a chance. Like we're not even starting, they're not even getting up to bat, basically, in the sports analogy, So yeah, that's kind of where I think like I'll wrap the video up and like say that's our theory, I guess, or like trying to say like that's a theory that's out there, and I want time will tell, obviously, if it's
Look, we had the mega Schulfer Derby this week somehow, so that was
it is the holidays after all.
Yeah. Ho, ho, ho. So there you go. Merry Christmas.
Speaking of, I got an ad read here. Coming in hot off the press.
Ad read.
Yeah. Someone sponsored our video. That's stupid.
Oh.
Who are these Lords of War guys?
Who are these Lords of War guys?
Well, if you live local in Canada, you can check out lordsofwargames.com and you can buy some cool things, I hear.
Yeah.
They have shill kits and airbrushes and paints and all sorts of stuff.
And
I guess.
And if you're not in Canada, just email us.
Yeah,
get in touch.
We can still
figure it out.
They can, not us.
Oh yes, obviously.
Thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate it. If you don't see us before the holidays, happy holidays.
Yes.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye.